Hey everyone, Kavemi here with another Reddit story. Today's story is about a woman who spent years suffering abuse from her mother, who was battling addiction. Even after cutting contact, the mother tried to control major life events, culminating in a desperate fight to keep her away from a newborn baby. It's a powerful story about setting boundaries. Settle in, enjoy the Minecraft in the background, and let's start. I ended all contact with my mean mother after she hit me in the face at a restaurant. Years later, she tried to take over my wedding and is now demanding time with my new baby girl. I, 26F, hardly talk to my mother, 48F these days. Our relationship broke because of the bad things she did to me over the years, starting when I was in grade school. Back then, my mother became addicted to pain pills after a car crash. At first, we all tried to understand. She was really hurting and the medicine helped. But soon she started taking more than the doctor ordered and eventually moved on to any drugs she could find. Everything changed when I was in 7th grade. Her drug problem got so bad that she took too much at work. She was a receptionist at a dentist's office, and they found her passed out in the restroom during her lunch break. She lost her job that day. After losing her job, my mother started taking out her anger on me. Every morning on the drive to school, she would find fault with everything about me. My clothes looked bad, my hair was a mess. I was too skinny. I walked like a boy. I talked too much. I talked too little. Nothing I did was ever good enough. My stepdad, Bill, worked long hours at his construction job, leaving early in the morning and coming home late at night. He wasn't there to see what happened during the day. By the time he got home, my mother acted totally normal. The situation got worse as I grew up. When I was 14, we were eating dinner at a restaurant with my stepdad, my 2 younger sisters, my grandparents, my Aunt Diane, and my cousin Jess. My mother started talking about Jess's friend's dad, saying he was irresponsible for forgetting to send out party invites. I said that it was actually Jess's friend who was supposed to mail the invites but forgot. Without warning, my mother hit me twice in the face with a closed hand. The restaurant went silent. My stepdad quickly grabbed her arm before she could hit me again. My aunt took me to the bathroom to clean up my bleeding nose. Later that week, Jess called child services, but nothing came of it. The social worker who visited our house seemed more interested in talking with my mother than checking on me. When I started my period at 15, my mother said I was now a woman and made me quit soccer and choir. She claimed these things were too manly and not proper for a girl. Without my sports and activities, I gained about 60 pounds over the next year. That's when the insults changed. Now I was fat, disgusting, and gross. She would stand outside my bedroom door while I studied, telling me no one would ever love me. I learned to completely block her out, a skill I still have today. Someone can be speaking right next to me, and if I'm focused on something else, I won't hear anything they say. People have to tap my shoulder to get my attention. When my mother realised I was ignoring her, she changed her approach. She would wait until I had to leave my room to use the bathroom or get food, and she would follow me, telling me I should end my life because I was so worthless. This kept happening all through high school. After graduation, I reconnected with my high school friend Sam. We lived close by and we both wanted to move out of our parents' houses. I was working at a hospital in patient sign-up, saving every penny I could. The breaking point happened when I found my mother in my room, hiding pills in my dresser drawer while swearing quietly. If those pills had been found with me, I would have lost my job at the hospital and my future career in healthcare. When Sam rang the doorbell moments later, I opened the door and he heard my mother shouting at me. We left right away to look at apartments. We found a place that afternoon and signed the lease papers. When we returned home with the signed papers, my mother's face dropped. She couldn't believe I was really leaving. I moved out the next day, taking only my clothes and a few personal items. My new apartment complex had a gym and tennis courts. Without my mother controlling my every move, I started exercising again. I lost around 65 pounds. Over the next year, I made friends in the complex. I started dating again. For the first time in years, I felt like myself. I didn't give my mother my new address for over a year. She had no idea where I lived, and it was peaceful. Then I met Paul. We instantly connected, and within a month I had met his parents. They were kind and welcoming, nothing like what I was used to. After 3 months of dating Paul, my grandmother called me. She said my mother had heard about Paul and wanted to meet him. My grandmother insisted that my mother had changed, that she felt awful about how she had treated me, and that she missed me. Against my better judgment, I agreed to slowly start talking again. The first call with my mother went exactly as I expected. She immediately tried to make me feel bad about leaving my childhood dog behind when I moved out. I reminded her that I couldn't have a dog in my apartment, and she knew that. A week later, my mother and stepdad came to visit my apartment. They brought my old dog, which was nice to see. About 10 minutes into the visit, my mother asked to use the bathroom. After she was gone for almost 15 minutes, I went looking for her and found her going through my dresser drawers in my bedroom. I told her to leave right away. My stepdad didn't argue. He grabbed her arm and practically dragged her out of my apartment. I told them both she was never allowed back. Paul asked me to marry him after a year of dating. I called my parents excited to share the news. Instead of congratulating me, my mother immediately started asking who would be in my wedding party. When I said that Jess would be my maid of honour and her son would be the ring bearer, my mother lost control. She threatened to hurt Jess if she came to my wedding. The backstory here is important. Jess had struggled with drugs too, but unlike my mother, she got help. She went to rehab and turned her life around. I think they used drugs together at some point, but Jess got clean while my mother didn't. My mother also claimed Jess stole from her, but she said the same about me when I never took anything. The real problem seemed to be that Jess wouldn't let my mother see her son alone, which was a smart choice. I hung up on my mother and kept calling other people to share my engagement news. But over the next few months, wedding planning became a source of stress. I truly believed my mother would hurt Jess if she had the chance. She knew where Jess lived, and she was unstable enough to act on her threats. After talking about it with Paul, we decided to get married in private. We had a simple ceremony with just us and a friend who became a minister online. Paul's parents signed as witnesses, but we kept that part secret. We then told our families we had gotten married. My mother went crazy, blaming Jess again for ruining everything. I didn't care, she didn't know about the real ceremony anyway. A month later, Paul's mother called and offered to throw us a party. She wanted to celebrate with us and said their family had gifts they wanted to give us. This seemed like a great compromise, a casual party where people could come and go. I called Jess, and she agreed to stop by early to drop off her gift and spend a little time with us before my mother arrived. I called my mother to see if she wanted to help plan the party. She said yes, but only if Jess was not allowed to attend. I told her no. I was tired of her controlling my life, and Jess had been like a sister to me all these years. I said if she was going to act this way, then she couldn't plan or attend the party. She responded by banning my stepdad and sisters from coming as well. I decided the party would happen without them. Recently, Paul and I decided to try for a baby. I lost a pregnancy last year, which made us hesitant to try again, but we're ready now. I absolutely do not want my harmful mother around my future child. I worry she'll treat my child the way she treated me. What makes me sad is that I love my stepdad and sisters, and they might miss out on being part of my child's life because of my mother. I'm not planning to tell anyone which hospital I'll give birth at, and I'll wait until we're home to let visitors come. I'd prefer to never tell my mother about the pregnancy, but I know she'll find out eventually. I'm worried she'll figure it out through my stepdad's insurance since I'm still on his plan as a backup coverage. She can't call for specific details, but she'll see bills for ultrasounds and doctor visits. My bigger concern is that she'll show up at our house. We own our home and love it here. I really don't want to move, but I will sell and move if she starts bothering us. My mother definitely needs help. But the one time I suggested she try rehab or therapy, she screamed at me until I hung up. My work and personal hospitals already know not to share any information about me because of my mother's history of calling my doctors to get my medical details. What frustrates me most is how my mother acts like my life events belong to her. I've tried cutting contact before, but family members pushed me to reconnect, claiming she had changed. She hadn't. We've had very little contact since the wedding discussion. I last saw her during the holidays, and the only reason I called about the marriage was to avoid a bigger fight. If she had found out about the party from someone else, she would have thrown a huge fit and probably bothered my mother-in-law. I talked to my stepdad yesterday and told him I'm finished with my mother's behaviour. He supports my decision and promised to make time to see me without her. I decided not to even bring up the baby yet. I just focused on her terrible behaviour. I also warned him that any family members who give me trouble about this choice will be cut off too. My stepdad did try to protect me when the abuse first started. He stood up to my mother, but she threatened to divorce him and take me away so he'd never see me again. My biological father left me when I was a toddler. so her threat was believable. I would have gone with her. My stepdad did what little he could until I turned 18, and then he really stood by me. I need advice on keeping my relationship with my stepdad and sisters, while keeping my mother completely out of my life, especially when the baby arrives. Has anyone dealt with something similar? Update 1. First, I want to thank everyone who commented on my first post. Your support and advice helped me feel sure about my decision to cut contact with my mother. I met with my stepdad for lunch last week. The talk went better than expected. He completely supports my decision to keep my mother out of my life and told me he actually confronted her about how she acted toward me. He said she dismissed everything, claiming I was blowing things out of proportion and always too sensitive. When I mentioned the party, he surprised me by saying he still plans to attend, even though my mother banned it. The party has been delayed because of a problem with the location, but we've set a new date for next month. My stepdad promised me he would be there along with my sisters. He said it's time he stopped letting my mother control who he can see and when. We also discussed the insurance problem. He confirmed that my mother cannot make any changes to his insurance plan without him knowing, so I don't need to worry about losing coverage. I didn't mention the pregnancy yet, simply saying I wasn't ready to tell people. During lunch, I asked my stepdad a question that had been on my mind for years. Why does he stay with my mother? His answer was simple. She doesn't have anywhere else to go. I told him that wasn't his problem, and I would fully support him if he decided to file for divorce and make her leave. He seemed surprised and thankful for my response. He then admitted something I hadn't known. He's been wanting to file for divorce since my youngest sister turned 18 last year. He stayed married all these years to make sure my sisters and I had a stable home. But now that we're all adults, he's been thinking about his choices. My stepdad shared more details about the start of my mother's drug problem. When she first started abusing me, he would argue with her after separating us. I remembered hearing them fight behind closed doors, but I never knew what was said. He told me he had warned my mother that he would get a counsellor or family help if the abuse didn't stop, saying it wasn't fair to me. That's when she threatened divorce and taking me away, claiming he was trying to stop her way of raising me. He also explained their money situation, which I hadn't fully understood before. We moved from a nice house to a trailer when I was in grade school because my mother had been badly managing their money, not paying the house loan even though my stepdad gave her money for it. After that, he limited her access to their bank accounts, giving her only cash for gas and food. My sisters called me after my lunch with our stepdad. They both said they would choose to keep a relationship with me over our mother any day. My younger sister, Amy, said that our mother has been harder and harder to live with since I moved out. My younger sister, Chloe, recently moved into her own apartment, leaving only Amy at home with our parents. Amy is looking for an apartment now too. She asked if I would help her search on my days off, which I happily agreed to. We spent last Saturday looking at places near my area. She found a small one-bedroom that's within her budget, and she's applying today. In other news, Paul and I had our first doctor appointment for the baby yesterday. The doctor confirmed I'm about 8 weeks pregnant. We saw the heartbeat on the ultrasound, which was amazing after our previous loss. The doctor said everything looks healthy so far. I've been thinking about how to handle family visits after the baby is born. Paul and I decided we won't announce the birth until we're home from the hospital. We'll invite my stepdad and sisters to meet the baby at our house, where we can control who comes into our home. I've also taken steps to make our home safer. We put up cameras at our front and back doors, and I've spoken with our neighbours about not giving any information about us to strangers. Our closest neighbours know the situation with my mother and have promised to call me if they see her near our house. I received a text from my grandmother yesterday, asking why I haven't called my mother lately. I replied simply that I need space from her for my mental well-being. My grandmother answered that family should always stick together and that I should forgive my mother because she's the only mother I'll ever have. I didn't reply to that message. My Aunt Diane called me afterwards saying my grandmother had been complaining to her about my stubbornness. To my surprise, my aunt defended my choice. She reminded me that she was there during the restaurant event, and many other times my mother abused me. She said she regrets not doing more to help me when I was younger and offered her full support now. I'm still worried about how things will go over the next few months, especially as my pregnancy progresses and becomes more obvious. I'm not showing yet, but I will be soon. I know it's only a matter of time before word gets back to my mother. For now, I'm focusing on staying healthy, supporting Amy and Chloe as they gain freedom from our mother, and keeping my relationship with my stepdad. The party is coming up in a few weeks, and I'm looking forward to celebrating with the people who truly care about me. I'll update again after the party, or if anything important happens with my mother. Update 2. A lot has happened since my last update. The party was yesterday, and it went better than I expected, though not without trouble. First, Amy successfully moved into her apartment 3 weeks ago. It's about a 10-minute drive from my house, which has been great. My stepdad visits her often without my mother, and we've been able to have family dinners with him, my sisters, and Paul, without the stress of my mother being there. As for the party, we held it at a small venue near Paul's parents' house. Jess arrived early as planned along with her son. We had about an hour together before she left, avoiding any possible fight with my mother. She gave us a beautiful handmade blanket as a wedding gift. My stepdad and sisters arrived shortly after Jess left. My mother didn't come with them, which was a relief. My stepdad later told me she had thrown a huge fit that morning when he and my sisters were getting ready to leave. She tried to physically block the door, but my stepdad simply walked around her and left anyway. My sisters followed him out to the car while my mother screamed from the doorway. The party itself was lovely. About 50 people attended, mostly Paul's family, friends from work and neighbours. My grandmother showed up briefly, staying just long enough to give us a card and make a pointed comment about my mother's absence. I simply thanked her for coming and moved on to other guests. Everything was going smoothly until about halfway through the event. I was talking with Paul's aunt when I noticed a disturbance near the entrance. My mother had shown up without an invite and was trying to get past Paul's father, who was blocking the door. She seemed drunk and was causing a scene. Paul immediately went to help his father while I stayed back. My stepdad quickly joined them, and together they convinced my mother to leave without too much disruption. Most guests didn't even notice what happened. My stepdad returned looking tired but determined. He apologised for the interruption and said he would deal with my mother from now on. He spent the rest of the party with us, even dancing with me during the father-daughter dance we had planned. That moment meant everything to me. After the party, my stepdad pulled me aside and told me he had made a choice. He was filing for divorce. He said watching my mother try to ruin yet another important day in my life was the final straw. He had already spoken with a lawyer and would be serving my mother with papers next week. Now for the pregnancy update. I'm 16 weeks along and definitely showing. I had my detailed scan last week and everything looks healthy. Paul and I found out we're having a girl. We decided to tell my stepdad and sisters about the pregnancy after the party. Their reactions were priceless. My stepdad teared up and my sisters squealed with excitement. They all promised to keep the news from my mother for as long as possible. Sadly, that wasn't very long. Somehow my mother found out about the pregnancy 3 days ago. I think my grandmother told her, though she denies it. My mother sent me a flood of text messages, going back and forth between demanding to be involved in her granddaughter's life and saying I was keeping secrets to hurt her. I blocked her number after the first few messages. An hour later, she started calling from different numbers. I blocked those too. Then she showed up at my workplace. Thankfully, security already knew about the situation and walked her out before she could reach my area. The most worrying thing happened yesterday morning before the party. I came out to my car to find all 4 tyres slashed. There was no note or clear proof it was my mother, but the timing seems too close to be a coincidence. We filed a police report, though I doubt anything will come of it without proof. We're now seriously thinking about moving before the baby arrives. Paul and I spent this morning looking at houses in a nearby town about 30 minutes from where we are now. We found a few good options, though the thought of moving while pregnant isn't appealing. My stepdad offered another idea. He plans to move out of the house he shares with my mother as part of the divorce. He suggested looking for a place with an extra separate living space where he could live temporarily. That way, he could help protect us and be close to his granddaughter when she arrives. We're considering this option. On a good note, my doctor sent me to a specialist for high-risk pregnancies because of my previous loss. The specialist has been wonderful, taking all my worries seriously, including the stress caused by my mother. My office has added special notes to my file about privacy concerns, and they've put in place extra steps to check the identity of anyone calling about my appointments. For now, we're taking it day by day. The legal papers for a restraining order are sitting on my desk, ready to file if my mother keeps up her behaviour. My stepdad keeps me updated on her actions, which helps me feel ready for whatever might come next. I'll update again after the baby arrives, or sooner if something important happens with my mother or my stepdad's divorce. Update 3. First, the good news. My daughter Olivia was born 3 weeks ago. She's healthy, weighing 7 pounds 4 ounces at birth, and absolutely perfect. The delivery went smoothly, and we were able to keep it totally private. We didn't tell anyone except Paul's parents when I went into labour, and we waited until we were home to announce her arrival. My stepdad and sisters were the first visitors, after Paul's parents. They came with gifts and tears of joy. My stepdad couldn't stop smiling as he held Olivia for the first time. He's already talking about teaching her to fish when she's older. Now for the updates on everything else. We decided not to move after all. Instead, we put money into better security, a proper alarm system, more cameras, and stronger locks on all doors and windows. Our neighbours have been incredibly watchful as well, keeping an eye out for my mother or any suspicious activity. My stepdad's divorce is moving forward. He moved out 2 months ago into a small apartment about 5 minutes from our house. The divorce has been hard, with my mother refusing to sign papers and making more and more unreasonable demands. She's trying to claim my stepdad abandoned her and is seeking financial support, even though she never worked steadily throughout their marriage. My mother found out about Olivia's birth through my grandmother, who saw pictures my sisters had posted on social media. Within hours, my mother started flooding my phone with messages demanding to see her granddaughter. I didn't reply to any of them. 2 days after Olivia's birth, a large package arrived at our door. It contained baby clothes, toys, and a note from my mother, acting as if nothing bad had ever happened between us. I donated everything to a women's shelter and didn't acknowledge the gift. 5 days after Olivia was born, my mother showed up at our house while Paul was at work. I was alone with the baby when I heard loud knocking on the front door. Through the security camera, I saw my mother on the porch yelling that she had a right to see her granddaughter. I called my stepdad, who arrived within minutes. He convinced her to leave by threatening to call the police. The next day, we filed for a restraining order. With records of the tyre slashing, the workplace problem, and the front porch confrontation, plus statements from my stepdad and sisters about her past behaviour, the judge granted a temporary order. The court date for a permanent restraining order is scheduled for next month. My mother fought back by spreading lies throughout the family. According to my aunt, my mother has been telling everyone that I'm unstable, that my stepdad turned me against her, and that I'm keeping Olivia from her to be mean. Most family members know better, but a few distant relatives have contacted me with worries about how I'm acting. Last week, my mother left a voicemail for Paul, crying and begging him to talk sense into me. She claims she's been clean and sober for months, which my stepdad confirms is not true, and that she deserves another chance. Paul deleted the message without replying. Yesterday, my grandmother called, asking me to think again about letting my mother meet Olivia. She suggested a visit at her house with her watching the entire time. I refused, explaining that nothing has changed. My mother hasn't admitted her bad behaviour, sought help for her addiction, or shown any real regret. My grandmother sadly accepted my decision, though I could tell she was disappointed. On a happier note, Amy and Chloe have been amazing aunts. They visit often, bringing homemade meals, and offering to hold Olivia so I can shower or nap. Paul's parents have also been incredibly supportive, respecting our boundaries and helping without interfering too much. My stepdad stops by almost every day, sometimes just for a few minutes to peek at Olivia. He told me yesterday that watching me become a mother has made him even more certain of his choice to divorce my mother. He said he wishes he had left years ago, when I was still living at home, but he's thankful we fixed our relationship. For anyone wondering about my job, I'm on maternity leave until January. My workplace has been understanding about the situation with my mother and has kept up the safety rules set up during my pregnancy. As for me, I'm getting used to being a mother one day at a time. Looking at Olivia, I'm more sure than ever that breaking the cycle of abuse was the right decision. I will never let her experience what I went through. The restraining order hearing's coming up, and I'm gathering all needed documents with help from my stepdad. While a part of me wishes things could be different, I've accepted that my mother is unlikely to change. My focus now is on protecting my daughter and creating the stable, loving home I never had. Thank you to everyone who has followed my story. and offered support. Your encouragement helped me stay strong through a difficult pregnancy and family situation. I probably won't post another update unless something big changes with my mother, but know that Olivia is doing great and our little family is doing well despite the challenges. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2. Dad put his new wife's name on house papers, lost everything, and begged us for help. We were unsure, but gave him one last chance. His actions 3 months later make us cry. My dad, 50 chose his new wife, 34F, over me 25F and my sister, 19F. Now he wants our help. I never thought I'd write this, but here I am, caught in a family drama that seems like it's from a TV show. My dad has always been the type to care more about his girlfriends than his kids, but recent events have taken things to a new level. To give you some background, my parents divorced when I was just 4 years old. I don't remember much about their marriage, but I do remember a lot of yelling and doors slamming. After the divorce, my mum moved across the country for work, and I stayed with my dad. He got married again quickly to my stepmom, Tina, when I was 6. Tina wasn't terrible, but she definitely came first in Dad's eyes. I remember one time when I was 12 and I accidentally spilled grape juice on Tina's favourite white shirt. It was an honest mistake. I tripped over our cat, Shadow, who liked to walk between people's legs. Instead of sticking up for me, or at least trying to calm Tina down, Dad just stood there and let her yell at me for what felt like hours. She called me clumsy, careless, and even suggested I did it on purpose. When I tried to talk to Dad about it later, he just said, "We have to keep Tina happy. She's the most important person in this family." That moment stayed with me for years. Things got even harder when my sister Lisa was born, when I was 6. I was excited to be a big sister, but it quickly became clear that Dad wasn't really interested in being a hands-on parent. He was always too busy with work or spending time with Tina. I ended up taking care of Lisa a lot, which wasn't fair, but I didn't want her to feel as unloved as I did. I remember one time when Lisa was about 3, she had a high fever and was crying all night. I kept going to Dad's room to ask for help, but he and Tina just told me to handle it myself. I ended up staying up all night putting cool clothes on Lisa's forehead and trying to get her to drink water. The next morning, when Lisa was finally feeling better, Dad praised me for being such a good big sister, without admitting that it shouldn't have been my job in the first place. When I was 16, Tina left my dad for another guy, her exercise teacher of all people. Dad was heartbroken, but instead of turning to us for help, he threw himself into work and dating. It was like he was trying to prove something to himself or to Tina. He'd bring home a new girlfriend every few weeks, and we were expected to be nice to them no matter what. Some of them were okay, but others were really mean to us when Dad wasn't around. There was this one woman, Shannon, who would accidentally break my things and then lie to me about it. She once threw my favourite mug, a gift from my mum, into the trash and then told Dad I was being dramatic when I got upset about it. Dad believed her over me, of course. I moved out as soon as I turned 18. I couldn't handle the constant new stepmom tries anymore. I got a scholarship to a state college and worked part-time to pay my bills. It was tough, but it was better than living at home. I took Lisa with me when she was 16. She'd been begging me to let her live with me for months, and I finally said yes when I caught Dad's girlfriend at the time, looking through Lisa's private journal. Dad didn't even seem to notice we were gone most of the time. He'd call maybe once a month, usually to complain about his latest breakup or ask for money, which I never had to give. 2 years ago, Dad met Sarah. She's only 34, which is closer to my age than his. At first I thought maybe she'd be different. She seemed nice enough, and she tried to get to know Lisa and me. But then Dad started changing. He stopped calling us all together, unless Sarah was there. He'd cancel plans with us at the last minute if Sarah wanted to do something else. When we did see him, all he talked about was how amazing Sarah was, and how we needed to respect her, as our new mum. Which was strange considering she's only 9 years older than me. The final straw was at Lisa's high school graduation. Dad had promised he'd be there. Lisa was so excited she'd even saved him a special seat right up front. But then Sarah decided she wanted to go on a boat trip that week. Instead of telling her no or trying to change the dates, Dad just didn't show up. He didn't even call. Lisa was heartbroken. I found her crying in the bathroom after the ceremony, still in her cap and gown. After that, Lisa and I decided to stop talking to Dad. We told him we were done being second best and that he needed to figure out what was most important to him. He got really angry and said we were being selfish and ungrateful. He even brought up all the times he'd helped us, like the time he missed a work trip to take me to the hospital, when I broke my arm, which happened because he left me alone at age 8 to go on a date with Tina. We haven't talked to him in over a year. It's been hard, but Lisa and I have gotten even closer. I've been working as a teacher at a local elementary school, and Lisa just started her freshman year of college. We've been doing okay on our own, helping each other through the tough times. But last week, Dad showed up at my apartment out of the blue. He looked terrible, unshaven, clothes all wrinkled, and he smelled like he hadn't showered in days. When I asked what was going on, he broke down crying right there in the hallway. Apparently, Sarah had been cheating on him with her ex-boyfriend for months. When Dad found out, she laughed in his face and said she'd never really loved him. She was just using him for his money. They got into a huge fight, and Sarah kicked him out of the house. The thing is, Dad had put Sarah's name on the legal paper for his house as a sign of trust. He'd also been paying for her expensive shopping and trips. He showed me his bank statements. He'd spent over $50,000 on her in the past year, alone. Now he's lost everything. His house, his savings, even his car, which was in Sarah's name. Dad begged me to let him stay with us. He said he had nowhere else to go and that family should stick together. When I reminded him how he treated us, he got defensive and said that was all in the past and we should forgive him. He brought up times from when we were little, like the summer he taught me to ride a bike or the time he helped Lisa with her school project, as if those few good memories could erase years of neglect and emotional abuse. I told him I needed time to think about it and that I had to talk to Lisa first. He's been calling and texting non-stop since then, going back and forth between making us feel guilty and making big promises about how things will be different this time. He's even brought up the idea of suing Sarah, but I don't think he has a strong legal case. Lisa is furious and wants nothing to do with him. She says she's finally started to heal from all the hurt he caused, and she doesn't want to bring back those bad feelings. Part of me feels sorry for Dad, but another part of me thinks this is what he deserves for how he's treated us over the years. I don't know if I can trust him not to hurt us again if we let him back into our lives. What should I do? Am I a bad daughter if I don't help him? I'm worried that if we do help, he'll just fall for the next woman who comes along and leave us again. But he is still our dad, and I feel guilty about possibly leaving him homeless. Any advice would be appreciated. Update 1. Thank you all for your supportive comments and advice. It's been about 2 weeks since my last post and a lot has happened. I wanted to give an update on the situation with my dad. After talking it over with Lisa, we decided to meet with Dad to hear his side. We chose a neutral place, a coffee shop near my apartment. When we got there, Dad already looked a bit better than he had when he first showed up at my place. He'd shaved and was wearing clean clothes at least. We sat down, and I told Dad that before we discussed anything else, we needed to talk about the past. I explained how much it hurt us when he constantly put his relationships before us. I brought up specific times, missing Lisa's graduation, cancelling plans last minute, even that time with Tina and the juice incident when I was a kid. At first, Dad got defensive. He tried to excuse his actions, saying he was just trying to keep peace, or that we were making things sound worse than they were. But as we kept talking, he seemed to lose some fight. He admitted that he'd made mistakes and said he regretted many of his choices. Lisa, who had been quiet until this point, suddenly spoke up. She told Dad about how she used to cry herself to sleep when she was little, wondering why he didn't love her enough to spend time with her. She talked about how she felt like she didn't even have a dad most of the time, and how much it hurt to see him spend money on his girlfriends while ignoring her. She brought up a memory I'd completely forgotten about. When Lisa was 10, she had been chosen as the main actor in her school play. She had been practicing for weeks, so excited to show Dad her performance. On the night of the play, Dad promised he'd be there. Lisa kept looking out into the audience, waiting for him to arrive, but he never showed up. Later we found out he had gone to a music show with his girlfriend at the time. Lisa said she never tried out for another play after that. I could see that Lisa's words really affected Dad. He started crying, which made me feel awkward because I'd rarely seen him show emotion like that before. He apologised again and again, saying he'd been selfish and foolish. We talked for hours. Dad explained more about what happened with Sarah. Apparently she'd been tricking him for a long time, keeping him away from his friends and convincing him that we were the problem in his life. He said he realised now how wrong he'd been to believe her. He told us about how Sarah had convinced him to retire early from his job as an accountant, saying they could live off his savings and investments. She then slowly went through his money, convincing him to sell off stocks and use his retirement money for her shopping trips and vacations. By the time he realised what was happening, it was too late. Dad also admitted that he'd been struggling with sadness for years, even before he met Sarah. He said he'd always felt like a bad father and had used relationships as a way to avoid dealing with his own issues. It wasn't an excuse for his actions, but it did help explain some things. In the end, we made a choice. We told Dad that we weren't ready to have him move in with us. We just don't trust him yet, but we also didn't want to leave him with nothing. So we made a deal. 1, we'd help him find a small apartment and pay the first month's rent. 2, he has to get a job within 30 days and start paying his own way. 3, he has to attend family therapy with us once a week. 4, no dating for at least 6 months while he focuses on fixing his relationship with us. 5, if he breaks any of these rules, we're done. No more chances. Dad agreed to everything. He seemed truly thankful for the chance. We helped him move into a tiny studio apartment last week. It's not much, but it's a start. He didn't have many things left after Sarah kicked him out, so we took him to a used goods store to get some basic necessities. I'm still feeling mixed emotions about all of this. Part of me is hopeful that maybe this time will be different, but another part of me is waiting for something bad to happen. I keep thinking about all the times in the past when Dad would promise to change, only to go back to his old ways as soon as a new woman came into his life. Lisa is even more doubtful than I am. She's agreed to the family therapy, but she's made it clear that she's not expecting much. She told me privately that she's only doing this for my sake, which makes me feel guilty. I don't want her to feel forced into a relationship with Dad if she's not ready. We had our first therapy session yesterday. It was intense. A lot of old hurts came up and there were definitely some tears, mostly from Dad, surprisingly. The therapist seems good though. She's not letting Dad off easily and is really making him face his past behaviour. One thing that came up in the session was Dad's relationship with his own father. Apparently, my grandfather drank too much and was rarely around. Dad said he never learned how to be a good father because he never had a positive male role model. It doesn't excuse his actions, but it does provide some context. Dad has been applying for jobs non-stop. He's even agreed to take a night shift at a local warehouse if he can't find anything else soon. It's strange seeing him actually put effort into something that's not a relationship for once. He's been sending me his job applications to review, which is a weird change from our usual roles. I'm trying to stay carefully hopeful, but it's hard. Every time my phone rings, I worry that it's going to be Dad telling me he's met someone new or that he's changed his mind about everything. But so far he's sticking to our agreement. Lisa is still keeping her distance, which I completely understand. She texts Dad occasionally, but hasn't seen him in person since that day at the coffee shop. I'm not pressuring her either way. She needs to do what's best for her own mental health. That's where things stand for now. I'll update again if anything big changes. Thanks again for all your support and advice. It really helped me feel less alone in all of this. Update 2. It's been about a month since my last update, and I wanted to share how things have been going with my dad. To be honest, it's been an emotional ride. The good news is that Dad managed to find a job within the 30-day limit we set. It's not a fancy job. He's working as a stocker at a grocery store at night, but he seems genuinely proud of himself for sticking to it. He's been paying his rent on time and even started putting a little money aside each week. It's strange to see him being responsible with money after years of watching him waste his savings on girlfriends and careless purchases. We've continued with the family therapy sessions. They're still pretty intense, but I feel like we're making some headway. Dad's been more open about the bad things he did and the reasons behind them. He talked about how his own parents were never really there for him emotionally and how he never learned how to be a good father. In one session, he brought up a memory from when I was about 5 years old. It was shortly after he and Mum had divorced, and I was having a hard time adjusting. He said he remembered me crying and asking why Mommy didn't love us anymore. Instead of comforting me, he'd gotten angry and told me to stop being a baby. He said he realises now that he was putting his own hurt and worries onto me, but at the time, he just didn't know how to handle a crying child. Lisa has started attending the sessions more regularly. She's still very guarded around Dad, but she's at least willing to be in the same room as him now. Last week, she actually laughed at one of his jokes, which felt like a huge step. It was a silly dad joke about a penguin walking into a bar, but seeing them share a moment of lightness was really nice. But it hasn't all been easy. About 2 weeks ago, Dad called me in a panic. He'd run into Sarah at the grocery store where he works. She'd made some mean comments about him being a stock boy, and then tried to convince him to get back together with her. She told him she'd made a mistake, and that she missed him. Dad was really shaken up by it. I was worried he might go back to her. But he surprised me. Instead of falling for Sarah's manipulation again, he called me for support. We talked for hours that night, and he kept saying how thankful he was for the second chance we'd given him. He said he never wanted to risk losing us again. Lisa had a harder time with the Sarah incident. She was sure Dad was going to run back to her and leave us again. It took a lot of calming down from both me and our therapist to reassure her. I think she's still waiting for Dad to mess up somehow. One positive thing is that Dad has started showing more interest in our lives. He asks about Lisa's classes and my work. He even remembered my birthday last week, something he hasn't done in years. He couldn't afford a big gift, but he made me a card and baked a slightly crooked cake. It wasn't much, but the effort meant a lot. We've had a few family dinners at my place. They're still a bit awkward, but they're getting better. Dad's trying to learn how to cook, which has led to some pretty funny fails. Last week, he tried to make spaghetti and somehow managed to set off the smoke alarm. But even when the food is terrible, it's nice to see him making an effort. I'm still cautious about fully trusting Dad again. There are moments when I catch myself waiting for him to go back to his old ways, but so far he's been sticking to our agreement and really seems to be trying to change. Lisa is slowly warming up to him. She agreed to let him come to one of her college volleyball games next month. It's a small step, but an important one. She's still hesitant about spending time alone with him, but she's making an effort in her own way. As for me, I'm taking things one day at a time. I'm proud of the progress we've made, but I'm also trying to keep my hopes real. I know we have a long way to go before our family is truly healed. That's where things stand for now. I'll update again if there are any big changes. Thanks again to everyone who's been following our story and offering support. It really helps me feel less alone in all of this. Update 3. It's been about 3 months since my last update, and I wanted to share how things have been going with my dad and our family situation. Overall, I'd say we're still moving forward, but it hasn't been without its problems. Dad has been sticking to his job at the grocery store and even got a small raise to shift supervisor. He seems to be proud of his work, which is nice to see. He's been telling us about some of the friends he's making with his co-workers, which I think has been good for him. Our family therapy sessions have continued, and they've been really revealing. We've been looking into a lot of deep-seated issues, and it's been tough, but necessary. Dad's been facing a lot of his past actions and working on understanding why he acted the way he did. It's not always easy to hear, but I appreciate his honesty. In one very emotional session, Dad talked openly about his childhood. He told us about how his father would often disappear for days drinking, leaving Dad to take care of his younger siblings. He said he always swore he'd be a better father than that, but somehow he ended up repeating the cycle of neglect in his own way. It doesn't excuse what he did, but it helps me understand a bit better. Lisa has been more involved lately. She and Dad had a big breakthrough in one of our sessions, when she finally told him how much it hurt her when he missed her graduation. Dad broke down and apologised sincerely, admitting that he'd been selfish and short-sighted. It was a really emotional moment for all of us. Lisa later told me that it was the first time she felt like Dad really understood how much he had hurt her. We've been trying to do more family activities together. Last month we went on a camping trip over a weekend. It was Dad's idea actually. He remembered how much Lisa and I used to love camping when we were kids, before he got too busy with work and relationships. The trip wasn't perfect. Dad forgot the bug spray, and we all got bitten badly. But it was fun to spend time together outside of our usual settings. We even managed to laugh about some of the mishaps, like when Dad tried to start the campfire and ended up singing his eyebrows. There have been some tough spots though. Dad ran into one of his old girlfriends at a local bar. He was there for dinner, not drinking. She tried to convince him to go out with her, and for a moment, I think he felt tempted. But he called me right after and told me what happened. He said he realised that no relationship was worth risking his progress with us. I was proud of him for that. But it also reminded me how delicate our situation still is. Lisa is still having trouble trusting, which is understandable. She gets worried whenever Dad doesn't answer his phone right away, thinking that he's found someone new and is going to disappear again. We're working on this in therapy, but it's a slow process. Our therapist has suggested some trust-building exercises which we're trying to use. As for me, I'm cautiously hopeful. There are days when I feel really good about our family's future, and other days when I wonder if we're fooling ourselves. But overall, I think we're going in the right direction. I've noticed that I'm less stressed around Dad now, and I'm actually starting to enjoy our time together sometimes. Dad's been talking about wanting to make peace with some of his old friends that he pushed away during his relationship with Sarah. I'm encouraging him to take it slow and focus on our family first, but I think it's a good sign that he's thinking about fixing other relationships too. We're planning a small celebration for Dad's 6-month clean mark next month. He wasn't a heavy drinker before, but he's completely stopped since everything happened with Sarah. It feels like an important step to acknowledge. That's where things stand for now. It's not perfect and we still have a long way to go, but we're making progress. Thanks again to everyone who's been following our story and offering support. Your encouragement has meant a lot during this challenging time. That's the end of today's story. Thanks for being with me as we went through that tough story about family boundaries and finding peace. Tell me in the comments what you thought, and stay tuned for more Reddit story videos with the usual Minecraft scenes in the back. I'll see you next time.